This is a presentation on a book that I wrote in 2010. The book is called Louisville 2035. It's a futuristic view of Louisville in the year 2035, but based on my visions that I had in 2010. So if you took 2010, the year 2010, and added 25 years to that, it would be 2035. And thus, that's the basis for this presentation. We're going to be looking at where we've been, where we are, and where we are headed as a city of Louisville. First, I want to go through a little fine print disclaimer. This is my own, Steve Weiser's opinion of where things might be in 2035. This has no official capacity for any governmental agency or anything of that nature. It's just my own viewpoints and opinions, and hopefully they are considered in that manner. So, let's have a crystal ball. What are our views of economic conditions, transportation, energy sources? There have been also many visions of Louisville in history. The yellow or the faded newsprint there in the upper left-hand corner was a vision from 1934 of Louisville, showing flying dirigibles and all sorts of modern advances in the city. Again, that was almost 100 years ago that someone was taking a crystal ball out and viewing what might happen in Louisville at that time. You see other representations of master plans and visions of how the city might develop into the future based on history. So my book, Louisville 2035, looked at what might impact future development, such as technology, work from home. Again, this was based in 2010. Currently, I'm speaking here in 2025. But already thinking about working from home in 2010. Climate change, electric cars, what power sources might there be? Living preferences, will people want to live in the urban zone or in the suburban sprawl zone? These are upcoming trend demographics. Again, this was based in 2010. Believe it or not, commuting times, well, fuel costs are always increasing, of course, fuel for power and all. Commuting times, in 1982, about 40 years ago, commuting times were 18 hours a year, so local commuters would spend 18 hours in a car getting to and from work. By 2007, that commuting time had increased up to 42 hours a year. And by 2020, just recently, it was up to 187 hours a year commuting via car. So pretty drastic change there, and spending a lot of time commuting back and forth. Other trend demographics, property costs continue to increase, of course, the aging population increasing. And our population, in 2010, we had 741,000 in the metro area, or in the Louisville area. 2020 had increased to 783,000 about. And by 2030, we should be up to around 837,000 individuals here in the Louisville area. Looking at some of our competition, such as Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Nashville, you will see that their rates of population increase over, from 1970 to 2008 have continued to rise and increase. However, when you look at Louisville's population, it has pretty much been stagnant or flatlined compared to our regional neighbors. From 2010, if you look back 50 years to 1960, again, you're looking back from 2010, 50 years to 1960, the trends then were the baby boom going on. You had a lot of new schools being built, a lot of suburban residential areas being constructed, retail out along the Waterson Expressway with the new malls being built. And then also from 2010, if you look back 25 years to 1985, you also saw a lot of activity. The Kentucky Center for the Arts, the Galleria, which we now know as 4th Street Live, the Humana building. There was a lot of activity back in the mid-1980s of growth and development of the city. In 85, when you look back 25 years from 2010. Now then, again, when I wrote my book in 2010, there was also a lot of activity going on. In the upper left-hand corner, you see a Yum Arena was under construction at that time, being ready to be opened. A Museum Plaza, that dramatic multi-story high-rise, was still being considered for construction. You had the City Center there in the upper right-hand corner being proposed, which is now part of the Omni complex. Norton Commons was under construction and being implemented. Nulu was starting to come to life. We had some park development going on and some discussion about where to put the new bridges, how to build the bridges. So let's go from here. Looking back at 2010, we're going to add 25 years and call it 2035 and consider what my vision of Louisville could be. And I'm also going to update you as to some recent developments that since I've written the book. So in 2025, I will give a little addendum, if you will, at the end of each segment showing what has transpired since 2010. First, let's look at my chapter called Creative Inspirations, 21st Century Parks. So in 2010, we were discussing building this phenomenal park system out past the Gene Snyder Freeway. Of course, Louisville had a previous history of this with the Olmsted Parks in the late 1890s and early 1900s. And then with 21st Century Parks, which we now know as the Parklands of Floyd's Fork, but you can see it there in the far right-hand corner of the development there outside the Gene Snyder Freeway. That was being planned and implemented, and it's phenomenal that this park system was planned and built within 10 years, from about 2008 up to about 2016. The vision of David Jones to implement this park. Just phenomenal that it was planned and created in that amount of time. So what has happened since 2010? So here's an update as to what has transpired since I wrote the book. The parklands were completed, as noted, in the late 2010s, 2018 or so. It was fully implemented and completed, and it's now known as the Parklands of Floyd's Fork. And another major park system has been proposed for southern Indiana. It's known as Origin Park, and the planning on that is currently underway, and the hope is that by 2035 it will be implemented. Another one of my visions back in 2010 was to create a new home for Metro government. Metro government is spread out among numerous buildings in downtown Louisville. You have to go from location to location to location to get things done. A lot of separate parts, separate meetings and all. Very confusing for those folks who are unfamiliar with the process of Metro government and how that is oriented. So here are some of the buildings that Metro government currently operates in. The old Jefferson County Courthouse, City Hall, 444 South 5th Street, and all that you have to go to get things done for Metro government. So when you look at the governmental center here, you have the City Hall, the Jefferson County Courthouse, all the various buildings that comprise metro government are located in this district in downtown Louisville. But if you notice there in the lower right-hand corner, there's this large surface parking lot that's there. And in 2010, I was proposing to put a major governmental complex there that would house all of the governmental functions. And believe it or not, in 2019, Metro government did conduct a feasibility study on that site to do that, but as of now, nothing more has transpired on a construction of a central governmental facility. However, just recently in 2024 and 2025, Metro government did purchase this building here. It's the former AT&T phone company building down near 6th and Chestnut, and it is going to become the new police headquarters building. But what's also significant about this building is it was originally designed back in the 1980s to go up multiple floors. I think, in fact, it might go up 20 floors additionally onto this structure. If you look at the penthouse up on top there, the elevators were designed to facilitate it being added onto vertically. So who knows, maybe down the road, Metro government may consider adding floors to this building and consolidating at this location here. But anyways, something to consider for the future, but this has been done since 2010, and so we do have a new police headquarters. Another thing that I envisioned back in 2010 was creating a resident and visitor orientation and resource center, as I call it, the Clark Guthrie Center. So Louisville has a lot of great visitor attractions, museums, things of interest throughout the community, but there is no focal point to bring all the visitors together to understand what we have and how to distribute folks or orientate folks to these sites. And so what I envisioned was, should the old Jefferson County Courthouse become vacant, if all the governmental functions moved out to my new government center, let's take the old courthouse and turn that into a resident and visitor resource center, as well as a Zachary Taylor Presidential Library and Museum with also some information on Abraham Lincoln, who was born here in Kentucky, just south of Louisville. So I was envisioning this central point for not only a visitor center, but also a presidential library. So what has happened since 2010? Since that proposal, I have come up with another thought about what could happen in Louisville. I'm proposing a Lincoln Jefferson Taylor Presidential Center for Louisville. We've had 3 presidents who have had major policy decisions based on Louisville and the United States. For instance, Abraham Lincoln, of course, visited Louisville in 1841, saw slavery firsthand there at the Farmington Plantation, and of course, ultimately the Civil War happened. Lincoln declared freedom for the slaves and all. Thomas Jefferson, one of his major efforts was the Northwest Expedition by Lewis and Clark. While St. Louis gets all the acclaim for that expedition, actually the Lewis and Clark expedition began in Louisville and ended here in Louisville. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark met just across the river in Clarksville, near Clarksville, Indiana, to begin their journey, and then when they returned, they came back to Locust Grove here in Louisville. So Thomas Jefferson's Northwest Expedition was very important to the country. And then Zachary Taylor, yes, his presidency was short-lived, but what he did in his military career still reverberates to this day from his exploits in relationship to the Mexican War back in 1848 and his defeat of the Mexican Army. By doing so, the United States expanded into the southwest United States, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California were all brought into the United States due to Zachary Taylor's defeat of the Mexican Army. And so all the immigration issues that have resulted from that event still reverberate to this day with those policies. Abraham Lincoln with freedom of the slaves and the racial issues that evolved out of that still reverberate today. And of course, Thomas Jefferson with the Northwest Expedition was very environmentally significant to the U.S. and his efforts there. And so all three of these presidential activities and efforts impacted 3/4 of the United States. The Northwest, the Southwest, and the Southeast were all centered around actions of these presidents based around Louisville. So a presidential center here locally, I think, would be a tremendous asset for visitors and residents, fully understanding how Louisville has impacted the growth of the U.S. Another chapter in my book of 2035 involved building the new signature tower for the city. As of 2010, no significant building had been built by that time recently, and so I was looking at how can we spur another major tower, high-rise here in the city. The original Galleria design that was unveiled back in the late 1970s envisioned numerous new office towers. There you see the original layout of what they had proposed. And you also notice that they were going to save the old Will Cells building, which was formerly the Courier-Journal building. And so this was the scheme. They were going to save the Will Cells and build all these new towers, basically on vacant land that already existed there. So one of the towers of the Galleria proposal was to be built here at 5th and Liberty. It was going to be called the Brown and Williamson Tower. However, the developer of the Galleria was unable to acquire this vacant surface parking lot, which then necessitated demoing the Will Cells building there at 4th and Liberty. It created a huge preservation battle for the city. But anyways, they did demolish the historic Will Cells building for the Brown and Williamson Tower. Unfortunately, even to this day in 2025, this site at Liberty and 5th is still vacant. And so what I proposed in 2010 was to build a new significant tower on that vacant surface lot at 5th and Liberty. And there's my proposal to put something noticeable there at that location. So what has happened since 2010? Was my tower built? No, unfortunately it wasn't built. That site is still vacant. But a number of new buildings have been built in downtown. Here are some high-rises that have over 6 stories tall that have been built. Most notably the Omni Hotel, which is about 30 floors in height, was constructed. A lot of hotels have been built. And Kindred built a major office building near 4th and Broadway. Perhaps the most significant new building that has been built since 2010 was really a recreation of the convention center property. It brings thousands of people to downtown Louisville on a weekly basis. If you go downtown on a weekend, there's usually a convention going on here at the center. I always find it fascinating when the archery convention comes into Louisville. There's a lot of people walking around downtown with bows and arrows. But anyways, downtown is very much alive due to all the visitors that are brought into Louisville by the convention center. So it has had significant impact in the vitality of downtown Louisville. Recently, in 2024, this high-rise has been proposed at near 2nd and Market Streets. It would be 27 floors in height, and I think it's progressing well towards construction. So fingers crossed that it will be implemented and built in the near future, late 2020s. Another major construction project near downtown, just outside the urban zone, is known as One Park and One Park North. It was proposed by the developer Kevin Cogan in the late 2010s, about 2017, 2018 it was proposed, and it's slowly taking shape. My hope is that by 2035 that this complex has been created and built. It's near Grinstead and Lexington Drive, just off I-64. One troubling aspect of downtown has been the vacancy rate in downtown. We have a lot of almost empty buildings, high-rise buildings in downtown. This is an illustration of a number of these. For instance, the Starks building there, almost 95% vacant. The Humana building will be vacant as of 2026 when they move out to their other location down Main Street. There's just a lot of vacancy happening in downtown. The Federal building is slowly being vacated, and I think by 2026 it will be empty. They're moving into other locations. So this will have to be addressed either by repurposing these buildings as residential or hotels or bringing in new occupants. And density in downtown has always been a concern. Here are two graphics that illustrate that. In 1900, the upper graphic that you see there, all the black dark areas were buildings, whether they're houses or office buildings or whatever. But yeah, you can see very dense in 1900 how it was developed. But by 1990, you see a lot of white spaces there, which is vacant land. And so the density of downtown has been lessened over that almost 100-year period. And so we need to infill these vacant lots. We need to avoid future demolition of buildings. And my theme has always been replace landmarks with new landmarks. So if you do have to demolish a historic structure, replace it with a building of significance, of quality, or better than what you're demolishing. So hopefully that will be a theme for Louisville going forward. More cross-river connections, local access bridges. So in 2010, we were discussing where to place new bridges, how to build them, and I had come up with this concept of, well, instead of major bridges, maybe we just build what I call local access bridges. So in its history, Louisville has considered numerous ways of getting across the Ohio River. The upper illustration there is of a flying duck that was powered by steam to fly over the Ohio. Someone really had a creative vision on that back in those days. Or in the lower graphic, they were looking at tunneling under the Ohio River. We're actually running trains beneath the Ohio River. Unfortunately, the ventilation systems for these type tunnels had yet to be developed, and so most of the passengers would have been asphyxiated by the steam engines going underneath the Ohio there. But anyway, some creative thoughts as to how to get across the river back in history. But by 1870, we did get a bridge across. The railroad bridge there near 14th Street was built. Then in 1886, the first K&I bridge was constructed, and then in 1912, it was reconstructed to allow heavier and more trains to cross it there in 1912. So the K&I Bridge was next. Then, of course, we had the Clark Memorial Bridge in 1929. We Louisvillians call it the 2nd Street Bridge. And then the Kennedy Bridge was constructed in 1963, and the Sherman-Minton in 1964. This was our interstate system in 2010. And you can see in the upper right-hand area there the dashed line illustrating where the East End Bridge might connect. So what has happened since 2010? Did we build those new bridges? And what's going on about cross-river connections since 2010? Yes, we did build the bridges. The Lewis and Clark Bridge was opened in 2016, and the Lincoln Bridge opened in 2015. So we did build these major bridges. Unfortunately, these bridges were extremely expensive. $2 billion were spent to build them, or basically $1 billion a piece. And while we did need new bridges, my thought was, gosh, how many local access bridges could have been built? And a local access bridge is a bridge like the Clark Memorial, where it only allowed local traffic to go back and forth, not interstate traffic. These new bridges, Lewis and Clark and Lincoln, are interstate bridges. But I was looking at, can we build more bridges like the Clark Memorial / 2nd Street Bridge? So we can still do that. Here is the Clark Memorial. There you see on the left, the aerial photographs there. And then on the right, I'm saying, well, we can still build another local access bridge adjacent to the Clark Memorial and tie it into 1st Street. So the existing Clark Memorial can tie into 2nd, carry traffic one way in, that way, and then the newer bridge can come in from southern Indiana and connect into 1st Street. I'm showing kind of an S-shaped connection there, but it could be built straight or however the planners decide to do it. But let's build more local access bridges to alleviate the congestion that we have that happens when the interstates get backed up for whatever reason. And we also need to reopen the K&I Bridge. I don't think it would ever be reopened to automobile traffic. However, it should be opened for bike and pedestrian access, similar to the Big 4 Bridge. That would really facilitate cross-river connection. Okay, back in 2010, we were talking about revitalization and sustainability in my book. Louisville has had a lot of great successes preservation-wise, repurposing historic structures. Here are just a few examples. And we've really had a lot of great success in repurposing former school buildings into residential structures. Here you see a number of images of some of the former schools that have been repurposed. And if you look at the very bottom, there's even more, probably even more that I illustrate that have been repurposed. We probably have had 30 to 40 schools repurposed into residential or office buildings. Just phenomenal success in saving our historic schools. We've also repurposed former firehouses. In the upper right hand corner, the Clifton Firehouse is now Silver Dollar Restaurant. The Butchertown Firehouse is a residential use now. The firehouse there at 802 East Main, which is near Shelby Street, that is now the Quill's Coffee Shop. All of our historic firehouses have been repurposed. Some of these are artist studios, such as there on West Jefferson Street. We've also repurposed a lot of former gas stations. In the upper left-hand corner, we have Veronese Restaurant on Frankfort Avenue in Clifton. That was a former gas station. Red Hog, also on Frankfort Avenue at Frank Avenue. That was a former gas station, and you can see a lot more illustrated here in a variety of different uses from ice cream stores to hair salons to even an animal hospital. And we've had former banks, financial institutions repurposed. The historic Monticello Bank there at Preston and Eastern Parkway is now a nail salon. The Fifth Third Bank there off Breckenridge Lane is now a First Watch restaurant. Former Chase Bank there at Baxter and Highland is now a coffee shop. Perhaps the most notable one is the old German National Bank, which is now Vincenzo's Italian restaurant there at Market and Fifth. We've had a great success in repurposing bank structures. So what has happened about revitalization and sustainability since 2010, since I wrote the book? One of the biggest things that has happened is bourbonism, where bourbon distilleries have taken historic structures and turned them into their headquarters buildings. Most notably, Angel's Envy did that, Copper and Kings, Michter's there at 8th and Main, the old Fort Nelson building, Brown-Forman there in the Nulu area. We've had great success, and in fact, I think only one bourbon distillery downtown, Rabbit Hole, is in a new structure. All the others have gone into historic structures. And as I mentioned earlier about Brown-Forman, the old Forester distillery there on Main Street and Whiskey Row. The upper images here are of Whiskey Row in the early 2000s. It was a desolate structure, a streetscape there, very deteriorated. In fact, a former mayor wanted to demolish all of this and take it down and put up a new building. We horrible preservationists fought against that, and we were very successful in saving Whiskey Row as it is today. And I think it is now one of, if not the best, tourist attraction in Louisville. Here are some other recent preservation efforts, repurposing of structures, a whole host of things. It's just phenomenal what has been accomplished over the last 15 or so years since 2010. In 2025, the old National Candy Company building between 13th and 15th Streets has been repurposed into a beautiful residential structure that has just recently opened, I believe, there. And just wonderful how this historic structure has been revitalized. And just across the street from that building, from that residential structure, the National Candy Company building, is this structure, the former Whiteside Bakery, also on Broadway between 13th and 15th Streets. It was just announced that it's going to become a distillery as well. Some people have compared this structure to a castle. Aesthetically, I don't know. It's fairly eclectic. It's got a lot of things going on with it, decorative-wise. But just so glad that this building is going to be repurposed and saved, and also help facilitate the revitalization of the West Louisville district. We still, though, have endangered historic properties. Liberty Hall, also known as Oddfellows in the upper left-hand corner here, is being proposed to be demolished by the Omni Hotel. And they want to put pickleball courts there, which to me is more of a suburban function, should not be in downtown Louisville. It's not replacing a landmark with a landmark. It's replacing it with a lower use function, and I oppose the demolition of Liberty Hall for pickleball courts. St. Paul's Evangelical Church there on in the center right. It was heavily damaged by fire back in October of 2024, and the hope is that it will be repurposed as well, but it's still endangered. And then a continuing controversy for the past 10 years has been the Urban Government Center there on Barrett Avenue near Breckenridge. We'll see how this shakes out. The developer wants to tear this down and put up a suburban style office complex which does not fit in with the surrounding neighborhood. We preservationists have been fighting this for the past 5 to 6 years, and it's still untold as to how this will end. But we hope that the developer will repurpose this structure into a residential use. Okay, also in my book of 2035, I was talking about the next hot area to live and work, and I was referencing Portland neighborhood and the West Louisville district. So here is West Louisville and Portland. The lower portion here is 9th Street. You have I-64 along the waterfront. Portland district is in the upper right-hand corner there. West Louisville over here, center and to the left. There's just a lot of opportunity here in the West Louisville Portland district. A lot of repurposing of buildings, revitalization. It's a very historic and beautiful district. Every time I drive through this area, I'm amazed at the phenomenal homes and buildings that are there. Back in 2008, the architects held what we call a charrette to kind of throw out some visions about some ideas about what could happen in the West Louisville Portland district. We had citizen input, came up with some great ideas. Unfortunately, over the past 17 or so years, nothing has significant impacted from our charrette, but we hope to have provided some momentum for some visioning here of how it can be revitalized. One of my thoughts in my book was, well, what if we put a botanical garden in the west end of Louisville, west portion of Louisville? And fortunately, a botanical garden has been built. It's more in the Clifton Butchertown area there off of a River Road and Frankfort Avenue, but it did get implemented. Another thought that I had is, can we put some artwork, a sculptural garden, or maybe even relocate the Speed Museum to West Louisville? The speed is very much restricted on the campus there at the University of Louisville, and would have been a great boon if it could have been located along the Ohio River just west of 9th Street, if the museum could have been moved there. Since 2010, the Speed Museum has since expanded in its current site, and so I don't see that as a future vision of putting the Speed in West Louisville. So what has happened since 2010, since I wrote the book? Has anything happened in Portland or West Louisville? Yes, in fact, the waterfront expansion has proceeded past 9th Street. They just recently opened this phenomenal playground for the children of the district there. Wonderful, and they're continuing to expand to the west with our phenomenal waterfront that we started back in the 1980s. And some significant structures have been built. The upper left-hand corner, that's the MSD building at 12th and Rowan. That actually is a very sculptural building. It has this light facade that keeps changing colors. I love going by it on I-64 and seeing what color it might be in the evening. But that building actually serves a purpose of access to the tunnel down below Louisville. There's a massive tunnel that they created in the last few years that holds storm water during a major rain event, that once the rain event has passed, they can pump the storm water back out into the Ohio River, and that helps also prevent flooding of basements in the West Louisville area and through in the urban area. The upper right hand corner is the village at West Jefferson. It's a commercial structure built there at 12th and Jefferson. Very nice design. Lower left-hand corner, U of L actually placed a fine arts program there in the Portland area. And then the lower right-hand corner, that actually is my efforts to revitalize West Louisville. I designed this healthcare clinic there at Broadway and 15th, which opened around, I think it was 2018 is when that healthcare facility, and that actually replaced a liquor store, a dilapidated, deteriorating liquor store used to be on this site, and we put a beautiful healthcare facility there. The developer Gil Holland has invested greatly in the Portland district. He built this residential structure there that you see in the upper portion, and then the lower warehouse buildings, they were the former Peasley Galbert paint buildings, and they have since been repurposed into residential structures. Very well, great efforts by Gil Holland, the developer. Some other major buildings have happened as well in West Louisville. The new YMCA there at 18th and Broadway. The old Passport site has been purchased by Molina Healthcare in 2022, and hopefully something good will happen there in the near future. Of course, the Norton Sports and Learning Complex there at 30th and Muhammad Ali, phenomenal, has had tremendous impact in West Louisville, as has the Norton West Louisville Hospital, which recently opened. Just a phenomenal investment there, making West Louisville a great place in which to live and work. Another one of my proposals in my 2035 book was creating what I call a waterfront loop. What would that be? Well, basically, we would loop around the entire Falls of the Ohio area there. We would create some walkways, bikeways, areas in which you could literally encircle the falls and Falls of the Ohio there with this waterfront loop. And one of those that I had proposed in 2010 was to create what I call a busway. There you see busway. What is a busway? A busway is a dedicated roadway just for buses. No cars could go on it, just the buses, and that would help facilitate buses be rapidly moving back and forth, keeping on schedule, and greatly facilitating commuters in and out of Louisville. The city of Pittsburgh has a number of these type of busways, and they really are phenomenal and help facilitate public use of buses. People hate to wait at their bus stop. Buses take a long time to get to where they're going, to all their stops and starts and congestion that's there. And so a busway with its dedicated roadway system can greatly speed up things for them. And I was looking at doing a busway along the waterfront, so from West Louisville to downtown you would have a nice connection, likewise over into southern Indiana. What has happened since 2010 for the waterfront loop? Well, we were able to open the Big 4 pedestrian bridge in 2014, so that's one part of the loop. So this allows folks from the Louisville side to go over to Jeffersonville, either by bike or pedestrian. And on the Indiana side, they have created a great, what's called the Indiana Greenway, that goes all the way from Jeffersonville through Clarksville over into New Albany. So you can literally walk from downtown Jeffersonville all the way over to the western end there in New Albany. So that part of the loop, so we've got the Big 4 bridge done, and we've got the Greenway on the other side. And on the Louisville side, we do have already a pedway, not pedway, but a pedestrian path and bike path along our waterfront. What's needed is a connection from the New Albany area back into Louisville, and that can be done by opening up the K&I Bridge for a pedestrian bike loop that would complete this waterfront loop around the Falls of the Ohio. So hopefully by 2035 that K&I Bridge can be reopened for pedestrian and bike use, and you can literally walk or bike around the whole waterfront area there. Attractive advantage, southern Indiana. In my book, The 2035, I also looked at our northern neighbors there of southern Indiana and what might happen across the river. One of the interesting things is if you look at this left image with the Ohio River, with downtown Louisville there. Now, what if we took the Ohio River out? This said the Ohio River does not exist. Well, when you bring that all together, you'll notice that on the Louisville side, the southern side, it's a very dense development. But on the northern portion, or the sunny side, as our southern Indiana neighbors like to call it, you see a lot of open space, a lot of green space. It's not as densely developed as the Louisville area is. So here are some views of southern Indiana from the Louisville perspective. Southern Indiana has some great historic structures over there, a lot of great amenities. It really is a nice location. I visited there often to see all these restaurants and attractions that they have there. And in 2010, they were going to have a really fantastic skyline view of the city. Of course, Yum Arena being built, and hopefully the Museum Plaza building was going to be built as of 2010. Southern Indiana had a lot of vacant land, a lot of open areas that needed to be developed that could take advantage of that marvelous view of our skyline. So what has happened since 2010, since I wrote the book? Well, Jeffersonville has been greatly revitalized by that Big Four bridge connection. They have a lot of new restaurants, a lot of activity. They have these festivals down on the waterfront on the weekends. It's just a great place to go over and enjoy and relax. They've taken advantage of that Big Four connection. Of course, they've proposed this Origin Park that will be a phenomenal. I can't wait for this to be built. I think it's in the planning stage currently, and I think they've actually started some parts of it under construction. So Origin Park hopefully will be completed by 2035 and add another great amenity for southern Indiana. And they have built, even though this is a rendering of it, they have built this complex in the Clarksville area on the waterfront. It's called their town center, and it is phenomenal. If you've not been able to go over and look at it, I highly encourage you to do so. They've taken advantage, they've taken those vacant lots, and they've put in these residential structures, some businesses there, and it has turned out very well. Here's another image of that town center, and again, it's been mostly constructed by now. Here's some more renderings of it, which again has been built. The Palmolive Colgate building there, the historic structure, will be repurposed. I'm not sure if it's going to be a hotel or residential, but hopefully by 2035 it will be totally revitalized as well. What else has happened since 2010 that has impacted our metro region's built environment? Well, as mentioned earlier, urbanism has been a catalyst for downtown and the New Lou and the Whiskey Row areas with all the bourbon distilleries there. We've built many hotels, over 20, maybe 30 new hotels in the metro region since 2010. And then we got these big mega warehouse structures that have been built around. Amazon has a number of mega warehouses, so much so that if you order something in the morning, you can get it delivered in the afternoon. Just phenomenal. I think the COVID vaccine was based out of a mega warehouse there in the Shepherdsville area that was distributed throughout the country with the use of UPS airplanes there at the Muhammad Ali International Airport. We have a great distribution network, and Louisville was built on distribution back in the 1800s with steamboats and railroads, and now with airplanes. So the mega warehouses have been built a lot in the area. Of course, the new VA hospital being built there on Brownsboro Road and the Waterston Expressway will have a tremendous impact in that district. I always encourage more residential developments to be built similar to Norton Commons, where you can walk to work, you have sidewalks, it's very neighborly. This new urbanism is based on historic neighborhoods like Old Louisville and Cherokee Triangle. And so we need more of that interconnectivity of business and offices and all with residential, lessen the use of the car. And then more parks are always welcomed. Again, Origin Park is being built, and more parks are always welcomed. There has been a proposal to revitalize the Belvedere district there in downtown Louisville. This was a vision proposed by the mayor in early 2025. This sort of contoured landscape. Unfortunately, it sounds like financially this cannot be built as illustrated here, and so the city is currently going through proposals to come up with other ways of revitalizing the Belvedere. So I came up with a proposal that I'll show you next. So this is my vision of repurposing the Belvedere in downtown Louisville. And I start out with building a central carousel here in the heart of the Belvedere. Many cities have this sort of carousel structure. In fact, they enclose it in another building for all-purpose weather reasons. But anyways, carousels are popular like in Cincinnati, San Francisco, I've seen them there. Spokane, Washington has them also. So a central carousel would be great. Next to it, we could put in a roller skating / ice skating rink, an all-purpose rink. Spokane, Washington, where I was just recently at, they have a similar all-weather rink there. And the Belvedere once had an ice skating rink on it. So why not bring that back with this all-purpose rink design? You can supplement it with a building nearby that would house the tickets, payment, gift shop, restrooms, and all for both the rink and the carousel. We would also, as you enter into the Belvedere off of Main Street, put in what I call a cascading water feature that echoes the Falls of the Ohio. That would lead you up to the Belvedere, and at the top of that ramp onto the Belvedere would be our beloved Louisville clock there. Louisville clock is a civic symbol. Louisvillians love it. It's had an unfortunate history in operating, so you could just statically put it there. It doesn't need to operate. Just locate it there at the top of the ramp. Or if you were able to reanimate it, that would be great as well. But this would help draw people up onto the Belvedere, this Louisville clock location. And then just past that, we can have a happy birthday venue. The happy birthday song created by the Hill Sisters of Louisville, Mildred and Patty Hill. It's perhaps the most widely known song around the world. I've heard it sung in Italian in Rome, Italy. I've also seen it performed as a hula dance in Hawaii. And so the happy birthday venue would be great for kids that celebrate their birthdays there on the Belvedere. Also proposed putting an Olympic symbol near the access pedway over to the Ali Center, which is there in the the southwest corner of the Belvedere. You can do an Olympic flame type sculpture perhaps, or maybe even a sculpture of a young Muhammad Ali. He was known as Cassius Clay in his youth when he won the Olympic gold medal in Rome, Italy back in 1960. And so this perhaps, by having a young Cassius Clay sculpture, could mitigate the Islamic tradition of not having sculptures of people such as Muhammad Ali, but let's do one of the young Cassius Clay when he won the gold medal. I think hopefully that would be acceptable tribute to Muhammad. We also do an amphitheater there, a kids play area just next to the happy birthday area venue, as well as the carousel and all. And then up on the main plaza overlooking the Ohio River, we would do the historic sculptures, which currently are there. We'd have King Louis, George Rogers Clark, York, and I'm also proposing a new sculpture there for a Native American woman to represent either the Shawnee Indians who populated this area, who were our pre-ancestors, if you will, of the Europeans coming into this area. But we need to recognize our a Native American ancestry as well. So putting up a sculpture there of a Native American woman, I think, would be of value. And it could also be of Sacagawea, who was the Indian guide for the Lewis and Clark expedition, perhaps. And then last but not least, overlooking the Ohio, we would create a new observation platform similar to what the Vessels is in New York City. It would sort of be like a Lewis and Clark observation area. We'd have telescopes and all, so that you can look out and see the falls of the Ohio, which is the reason why Louisville is here. And I think it would be a great tourist attraction as well if we had this nice vertical fleur-de-lis themed type tower there overlooking the Ohio. So in summary, here are the various proposals that I had in my Louisville 2035 book. It's talking about new high-rises being built, visitor center being constructed, Metro Louisville government complex being built, West Louisville Portland revitalization, creating a waterfront loop around the entire Falls of the Ohio area, building more parks like Origin Park, a new local access bridge, and a new waterfront development there in the Jeffersonville, Clarksville, New Albany area. So thank you for viewing my proposals for the year 2035. Feel free to send me comments at my email address at wiserfaia@outlook.com, and I hope we'll be around in 2035 and see how some of these visions have taken shape. Thank you very much for, again, listening to my comments.